I've always been curious about the dark web. I've heard stories about it, a place where you can find anything, no rules, no limits. It sounded dangerous and thrilling. One night, my curiosity got the better of me. I decided to explore it. I thought I was prepared. I was so wrong. I sat in my dimly lit room, the only light coming from my computer screen. I had done some research and learned that I needed a special browser to access the dark web. It was called Tor. I downloaded it and installed it on my computer. My heart was pounding with excitement and fear. After opening Tor, I found a search engine that could help me navigate this hidden part of the internet. It was called the Hidden Wiki. I clicked on the link and a list of websites appeared. Most of them had strange, random names that didn't make any sense. Some promised illegal services, others claimed to sell things you couldn't find anywhere else. I knew I should be careful. I didn't want to do anything illegal. I was just curious. I clicked on a link that said Darknet Markets. It took me to a forum where people were talking about different marketplaces on the dark web. They were discussing drugs, weapons, fake IDs, and other illegal stuff. It was scary to read, but also fascinating. Then I saw a link that caught my eye. It said Red Room. I had heard of these before. They were supposed to be live streams where people were hurt, or worse, for the entertainment of others. I didn't believe they were real. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. But my curiosity was too strong. I clicked the link. A new page opened. It was black with red text. It said enter at your own risk. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop now. I clicked enter. The screen went black for a moment. Then a video player appeared. There was a countdown timer showing 5 minutes. I guessed it was a countdown to the start of the stream. I sat there, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to close the browser and forget about all this. But another part of me wanted to see what would happen. The countdown reached 0. The video player flickered to life. At first, the screen was dark. Then a dim light came on. I could see a room. It looked like a basement. The walls were bare concrete, and there was a single chair in the middle of the room. A person was sitting in the chair, tied up. They had a bag over their head. I felt a chill run down my spine. This couldn't be real. It had to be fake. I wanted to believe it was fake, but it looked so real. Suddenly, another figure appeared on the screen. This person was wearing a black mask and gloves. They walked over to the person in the chair and pulled the bag off their head. It was a woman. She looked terrified. She started to scream, but her screams were muffled. I realized she had a gag in her mouth. I felt sick. This was too much. I reached for my mouse to close the browser, but the screen went black again, and a message appeared. It said, "You cannot leave now." My heart skipped a beat. How could they know I wanted to leave? The masked person on the screen looked directly at the camera. It felt like they were looking right at me. Then they spoke. Their voice was distorted, making it sound unnatural. "Welcome, viewer," they said. "You wanted to see the dark web. Now you are part of it." I tried to close the browser again, but my computer wasn't responding. I pressed the power button, hoping to shut it down. Nothing happened. Panic started to set in. The masked person on the screen continued to talk. "You cannot escape. We know who you are. We know where you are." Tears filled my eyes. This was a nightmare. I tried to pull the plug from my computer, but it was stuck. The masked figure laughed. "We have control now. You should never have come here." I looked back at the screen. The woman in the chair was crying. The masked person moved closer to her, holding a knife. I couldn't watch it. I turned away, but I could still hear her muffled screams. Then my phone buzzed. I jumped, almost dropping it. I looked at the screen. There was a new message from an unknown number. It said, "Watch, or it gets worse." My hands were shaking so much, I could barely hold the phone. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I looked back at the screen, tears streaming down my face. The masked person was still there, standing over the woman. They hadn't hurt her yet, but I knew they would. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there. I grabbed my phone and called the police. My voice was shaking as I told them what was happening. They didn't believe me at first, but then I gave them my address and begged them to come quickly. Minutes felt like hours as I waited. The video stream continued, but the masked person hadn't done anything yet. It was like they were waiting, watching me, enjoying my fear. Finally, I heard sirens outside. Relief washed over me. The police were here. They would help. I heard a loud knock on the door. I ran to open it, sobbing. The police officers looked at me with concern. I tried to explain what had happened, but it was hard to find the words. They came inside and looked at my computer. The screen was still showing the live stream. One of the officers took a look at it and then turned to me. "We need to take your computer as evidence," he said. "We'll do everything we can to track these people down." I nodded, too shaken to speak. They took my computer and left. I was alone in my room, feeling more scared than I ever had in my life. I knew I would never forget what I had seen. I wished I had never tried to access the dark web. Curiosity had led me into a nightmare. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. I'm Jacob, a college student with too many assignments and not enough time. I thought college would be fun, but it's just a mountain of work. My grades were slipping, and I needed help. That's when I heard about the dark web from a friend. He told me I could find anything there, even academic papers. At first I was scared. The dark web sounded like something out of a horror movie. But desperation has a way of pushing you to do things you wouldn't normally do. So, one night, I sat in my small dorm room, the glow of my laptop screen lighting up my tired face, and I decided to dive in. I followed some online guides to access the dark web. It took a while, but I finally got to a marketplace. My heart pounded as I browsed through listings of term papers, essays, and research projects. It felt wrong, but I was out of options. I bought a paper for my history class and waited. When the paper arrived, it was perfect. I submitted it and got an A. Relief washed over me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I decided to buy another paper, and then another. Each one was a success. The dark web was my secret weapon. One night, while searching for a paper on modern literature, I stumbled upon a strange website. It didn't look like the others. The background was pitch black, and there were no flashy ads or pop-ups, just a simple menu and a lot of text. Curious, I clicked on the first link. It took me to a page with pictures of meat cuts. At first, I thought it was a butcher's guide. The meat looked raw and fresh, but something about it was off. As I scrolled down, the descriptions began to make me feel uneasy. The cuts had names like shoulder cut, thigh fillet, and rib slice, but they looked too familiar, too human. My stomach turned. This couldn't be real. I told myself it was just a sick joke. But then I saw the recipes. They were detailed, with instructions on how to prepare and cook each cut. The language was clinical, almost professional. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. I wanted to close the page, but I couldn't stop reading. The more I read, the more horrified I became. There were testimonials from people claiming to have tried the recipes, praising the quality of the meat. It was like I had stepped into a nightmare. Panicking, I shut my laptop and sat there, heart racing. What had I just seen? I couldn't believe it. I wanted to forget, but the images were burned into my mind. I knew I had to do something, but what? Report it to the police? What if they traced it back to me? Would I get in trouble for being on the dark web? For days I couldn't focus. My classes, my friends, everything felt distant. All I could think about was that website. I felt trapped, like I was carrying a terrible secret. I knew I couldn't keep it to myself, but who could I trust? Finally, I decided to talk to my friend Mark, the one who told me about the dark web in the first place. We met at a coffee shop off campus. The place was crowded, the noise a comforting distraction. "Mark, I need to tell you something," I said, my voice shaking. He looked at me, concerned. "What's up, Jake?" I told him everything about the papers, the website, the meat. He listened quietly, his expression growing more serious with each word. "Jake, this is serious," he said when I finished. "You need to report this." "I know, but I'm scared. What if they think I'm involved? What if I get expelled or arrested?" Mark sighed. "You can't let fear stop you. This is bigger than us. Those people need to be stopped." He was right. I knew he was, but the thought of going to the police made my stomach churn. Still, I couldn't ignore it. The next day, I gathered my courage and went to the campus security office. I told them everything, leaving out the part about buying papers. They listened carefully and promised to investigate. Weeks passed. I kept my head down, trying to focus on my studies. Every day, I wondered if I had done the right thing. What if they didn't find anything? What if the website disappeared, leaving no trace? Doubt gnawed at me, but there was nothing I could do except wait. One afternoon, I got a call from campus security. They asked me to come in. My heart raced as I walked to their office. When I arrived, a stern-looking officer greeted me. "Jacob, we've looked into the website you reported," he said. "You did the right thing coming to us. We've handed it over to the proper authorities. They're taking it very seriously." Relief flooded over me. I had done the right thing. The officer thanked me for my bravery, and I left the office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I knew I would never forget what I had seen, but I also knew I had done my part to stop it. From then on, I swore off the dark web. No more shortcuts, no more easy outs. I focused on my studies and worked hard to keep up with my assignments. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I learned that some things are too important to ignore, and sometimes doing the right thing means facing your fears head on. I had always been curious about the dark web. People said it was dangerous, full of illegal activities and disturbing content, but my curiosity got the better. One night, after a few drinks and a little too much free time, I decided to explore it myself. I thought I was prepared, having read forums and watched videos about how to stay safe. I set up a secure browser and used a VPN to hide my tracks. After browsing through various links, I found myself on a strange website. It was called The Night Watchman. The site had a dark, eerie design, with flickering lanterns and a shadowy figure in the background. It felt like something out of a horror movie. My heart raced, but I was too intrigued to stop. A message appeared on the screen. "Welcome to the Night Watchman. Dare to choose your victim." I hesitated. This was something sinister. My gut told me to close the laptop and walk away, but my curiosity was too strong. I clicked the button, the screen changed, showing a list of names and photos. The people looked ordinary, men, women, even a few children. Each had a brief description, age, location, and a little about their lives. It felt incredibly wrong, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. A timer appeared at the top of the screen, counting from 5 minutes. A new message popped up. Choose your victim before time runs out, or one will be chosen for you. My hands shook. I didn't want to choose anyone. I tried to exit the site, but every button I clicked returned me to the same page. The countdown continued, each second making my heart pound harder. 4 minutes left. I scanned the names, feeling sick to my stomach. I knew I had to do something, but what? I couldn't just sit there. I picked up my phone to call the police, but there was no signal. It was as if the site had cut me off from the outside world. 3 minutes. I thought about shutting down my laptop, but a message flashed on the screen. Shutting down or disconnecting will result in immediate selection. I was trapped. 2 minutes. Panic set in. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, but I didn't know how to stop this. The faces on the screen seemed to stare at me, pleading for mercy. I couldn't choose. I wouldn't. 1 minute, my mind raced. Maybe if I chose someone random, nothing would happen. Maybe this was all a sick joke. With shaking hands, I moved the cursor over a name, but couldn't bring myself to click. 30 seconds. I closed my eyes, hoping this was just a nightmare. When I opened them, the timer was almost up. I took a deep breath and prepared for the worst. The timer hit 0. The screen went black. For a moment, there was silence, and then a new message appeared. Your turn. I stared at the screen, confused. What did it mean? Before I could react, the list of names and photos reappeared. This time my face was there, along with my details, age, location, and a brief description of my life. I gasped, my blood running cold. How did they know? My photo looked recent, taken without my knowledge. It was then I realized I was the next potential victim. My heart pounded in my chest. I had to stop this. I grabbed my laptop and threw it against the wall. It shattered with a loud crash, pieces scattering across the floor. I stomped on the remains until I was sure it was destroyed. Breathing heavily, I looked around my room, paranoid that someone was watching me. The silence was deafening. I checked my phone again, still no signal. I rushed to my router and unplugged it, hoping to sever any connection the site had to me. Minutes passed and slowly my heartbeat began to calm. I sat down, my mind racing. Had I just seen my face on a hit list? Was it some elaborate prank, or had I narrowly escaped something far worse? I never found out. I didn't dare to. From that night on, I stayed far away from the dark web. The memory of the night watchman haunted me, a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking in the shadows of the internet. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, is still watching me. Every time I see a shadow out of the corner of my eye, or hear a strange noise at night, I remember that sinister website. I remember my face on that list, and I remember the choice I almost made.